Hi everybody, it's Christina. Give me just a moment. And I'm sideways. Well, let me see if that's any better. Hang on just a sec. Okay. Hi guys, it's Christina Quick. I am glad to see you guys here. We are continuing on in our series for psychic mediumship development, just basic psychic development stuff. This is really core trainings to really help you open up all of your psychic abilities. But I find that personally, mediumship is one of the best ways to develop yourself psychically because it has a domino effect for every other part of your life. Okay, so let me just make sure everybody can see me, make sure that the sound is working well. Give me just a moment. If you are here, let me know if you can hear me. Let me know where you're listening from. Are you a psychic medium? Do you identify as a psychic medium? How long have you been working as a psychic medium? Okay, looks like I am pinned. I'm in the right area. I may not be able to see comments. Facebook is kind of silly like that sometimes where comments might get hidden. So, hi, A-B. Am I saying that right? A-B. Hi, Amanda. Thank you so much. I got those for them for Christmas this last year. Hi, Desiree. Good to see you guys. Welcome, welcome. Oh, Kira's gonna make it. Don't knock over my tripod, babe. Please. Come here. Come here. Come say hi to everybody. Come here. Oh. This is Kira Bean. Remember, she was just a little puppy. Now she's big puppy. She's tired. She's tired. I know. We played fetch for like an hour. Come up here. Come here. Come here. Okay, she's just looking at me like, what do you want? Hi, Jasmine. Nope, you can't come up on the tripod, babe. She's like, I'm going to knock over this tripod. So we are continuing on in our mediumship series. So we've talked about things such as trance induction. We've talked about different types of beings, high vibrational beings that you can connect with when you're doing mediumship abilities, when you're doing mediumship readings. We've also talked, the strong emphasis on this whole series has been for me is telling you guys that mediumship is not just talking to dead people. Mediumship is really more of a lifestyle. It's a worldview. It's a perspective. It's the perspective and worldview that everything has a spirit and everything can be communicated with, manipulated in such a way that we can connect with things on an energetic level. And that could be things like a cat, or it could be things like your tarot deck. Either which way, it's this animistic worldview that everything has a spirit, everything has a soul. Go get it. And that we can communicate with it, right? In order to achieve a desired effect. So we've spent a lot of time talking about that. So we have, I think, I was looking at it, I think we have like 5 videos out already. So today in particular, she always waits till I'm on camera to be a nuisance. But we're going to be talking in particular about the aura, because the aura is really the gateway in which you can do a lot of readings, right? So we've talked about like what is mediumship as it relates to like what it actually is. How do you receive mediumship information? Disney Pocahontas. I know every rock and tree and creature has a life, has a spirit, has a name. And that's, yeah, and that is from the animistic worldview. So it's an indigenous worldview, and it's the most ancient worldview that we have, right? Where everything has a spirit, everything can be communicated with, everything can be petitioned, and we can work with things that have spirits in order to create abundance and prosperity and protection in our own lives. So, many people are like, okay, so now we know what mediumship is. Now we know it's based on the fact that everything has a spirit. We've talked about how to do trance induction, how to get yourself into the vibration of being able to receive psychic information. that way. And so now that we can get into the trance, now that we know how to protect ourselves, now that we know how to create thought forms, now that we know what mediumship is, how do we actually utilize mediumship? So the most common way that we're going to utilize mediumship is through, well, there's a bunch of different ways you're going to access it, but it's mostly through what is called the aura. So the aura, how many of you work with auras, or you understand what an aura is, or you have an idea of what an aura? If you have an idea of what an aura is, go ahead and write it in the comments, and I'll read them, and then we can kind of see where everybody feels, because it's really interesting how we all have a different like description for it, but we all know what it is, right? So an aura, hi Gemma, is basically, if you go through the noetic sciences, right? So that's the route that I take, where the noetic sciences are a blend of spiritual and science. So I tend to not be super duper like woo-woo when it comes to these things. I tend to base my psychic development in actual reality, in studies, in human anatomy, things of that nature, because I really don't feel like psychics phenomena. I really don't feel like mediumship and psychic skills are something that exists outside of us. I feel like it's something that exists, it's something that is biological, and it's something that's natural and it's instinctual. Desiree says aura is color energy or color vibrations. Yes, that is definitely an aura. Jasmine says, I've seen them since I was a teacher. A colorful static bubble. I can see it as, yeah. So aura, we tend to see auras mostly are known as kind of like, say, a halo. If you see those old pictures of saints, a lot in the Christian and Catholic Renaissance type of art, you see they all have like those halos, and it's all like divinity, yes, but it's the aura. It's a divine aura, and usually it's like golden colored. But the aura, if you come from a biological perspective, right, everything has an electromagnetic field. You have many electromagnetic fields, but you have all of your organs have an electromagnetic field. Your whole body has an electromagnetic field. Your emotional sense of self has an EMF. Your physical sense of self has an EMF. So what does that mean? Well, we know through quantum physics that not everything is like solid. Like things we think are solid are not necessarily solid. What it is that all of the molecules, all the chemicals that make up us are all vibrating. They're all vibrating at certain frequencies. And we have what is called a resonance, a vibratory resonance that each one of us give off. And so, and that can be different, making up of different layers of an aura, right? So we have what's called like a homeostasis aura, which is like our baseline aura. That's like our day-to-day aura, right? Then we have certain auras when we're feeling sad, or we have certain auras when we're happy. So we have auras that can be ignited by certain emotions, strong emotions, jealousy, rage, happiness, elation. These are all emotions that can create an aura around us, right? They can influence our electromagnetic field. Now, I really want to spend some time talking about the heart and the brain connection. There's a lot of studies that are coming out that talk about how your heart is just as powerful when it comes to neurological processes as your brain. Your heart is really your second brain. Your heart is your emotional intelligence. Your brain is your intellectual intelligence, right? The left and the right hand side, left hand path, right hand path. And so I think a lot of us are highly connected to our heart as our brain, especially if you are an empath, especially if you are the type of person who has invested a lot of time and energy into learning how to do emotional regulation, that sort of thing. We also our stomach has its own brain. Like each of your organs have their own brain, and they have their own operating system, right? And so within this, they give off different types of vibrations. So when you're looking at an aura, you can look at an aura through, I can't remember what kind of camera it is, but it's is it an infrared, or is it it's a specific type of camera that's like an EMF camera, and you can have that on you live in real time, and you can see how your actual EMF field changes, how it waxes and wanes, how it moves. And there's videos, especially if you go in the Noetic Science website and on YouTube and stuff like that, there are videos where they have captured where psychics are doing an actual reading with someone sitting next to them. And what happens is you can see on the camera their EMF fields begin to merge. And so when we are, excuse me one second, I'm going to put this puppy outside because she wants to play, and now's not the time. Give me one sec, guys. Come on. Okay, sorry about that. Puppy mom life, right? So, yeah, that's how you see it too. Okay, so first of all, biologically speaking, scientifically speaking, everything has an EMF field. Everything has an electromagnetic field. And everything in between then is just space and time, right? And so we also know that through quantum physics, that space and time are kind of relatively meaningless, right? So whether you're actually sitting across from someone and doing a reading where your EMF field and their EMF field are kind of coming together and they're merging and you're getting psychic information based off their EMF, or they're 5,000 miles away in South Africa and you know, you're still being able to read their EMF field. So that's really what I see auras as. Primarily biologically, they are your EMFs. And if you've ever looked at what is called a torus, not Taurus as in Taurus or Taurus, but Taurus as in Torus, that is basically the shape of electromagnetic fields. Everything has a north pole and a south pole, right? Now, if you think about the poles as far as the bodies go, well, that's your chakras, right? So you have different points of accessibility with your psychic abilities, different points in which you can read an aura through your psychic abilities based on these central vortexes, based on these power points that you have in your body. Some people call them meridians, some people call them chakras, okay? Some people use acupressure, acupuncture, stuff like that. So if you ever look at a torus, basically it's shaped like this, right? Your energy is moving up from the bottom of your feet down and back around. And you have multiple interlinking. And this is where we get the idea of the Sephira, the Sephiroth, right? The tree of life, or where we get the idea of the chakra map. Yeah. So we know now biologically that this is kind of what it's talking about. It's talking about all these little centers in our body that make up the whole overall of our aura. Now, seeing auras, that can be a different thing entirely. So most of us, when we think about auras, we think about seeing that outline around a person, right? So usually how we see that, have you guys ever seen those pictures where they look like static and you have to cross your eyes a certain way in order to reveal the image? Have you guys ever seen those magic eye pictures? That's kind of like how we see auras, where we have to kind of focus beyond something, right? If you want to see them, hi Liz, if you want to see them on a physical level, you can see auras on a physical level. It's very easy. Most things are going to have sort of like a white, bluish, sort of neutral sort of aura around it. Some people may have different colors. Some people, I know, I love those. Do you remember going to the book fairs? And I would always grab, like in middle school, I would always grab the Magic Eye books. That would be I would make the beeline when we'd have the book fairs after school where you can come in and buy books. I would make a beeline to the Magic Eyes. I love those. Gemma says, I see auras almost on everything since birth. Yeah, everything has an aura. Literally everything has an aura. It's just that inanimate objects that don't have what we call anima, right? And animation, the life force behind it, that their aura may not be very bright or active. So that's why, when you're looking at, say, a lip gloss, you might not see a very strong aura. Okay, but it's there. It's there. And it's maybe not as powerful as, say, a human aura. Gemma says full realization, aka enlightenment, or what Tibetan monks call attaining rainbow body, yes, is why with some people it looks more like a rainbow. Yes. Yes. Gemma says it's also the best way to view constellations by looking just to the side or through them. Yeah. Hi, Rena. Good to see you. The less life. Yes, exactly. Desiree says, I don't see auras, but I can feel them. Yes. So you see it through clairvoyancy. Okay. So, okay. Have a good day at work. Love you. Have a good day. Thanks for coming by. So you can see auras in a biological sense, in a real sense where you're actually seeing it with your eyes. Okay. You can also see, and this is where more of the information comes in, is you see auras clairvoyantly. Okay. So you may see what we call kind of like a filter, kind of like using Instagram filters, right? So that's kind of what clairvoyance is like. It's like having an Instagram filter, but in your mind that you kind of overlay on top of reality. All right. So being able to see auras in a clairvoyant sense is really, I would say, about 90% of how people really see them. Okay. Most people are not going to look at them in a physical sense because there's not a lot of information in that way. But when you look at an aura in a clairvoyant sense, then the world opens up and you can start connecting more psychically to that aura. But sometimes the reason why I bring up like the biological aspect of it is because, one, I want you to know an aura is a real thing. It's a real thing. It really does exist. Everybody has an aura, right? Two, it can provide a focus point. So say you're doing a picture reading, or say you're doing a reading on someone who's in front of you, whether they're on camera or whether they're in person, right? So knowing that it's a real thing and knowing that you can physically see it with your naked eyes is going to provide like a psychological anchor. So you can anchor your intention and your focus into that. And that's a way that you can do trance. So this is kind of like another way to do trance, is where you kind of shift your eyes, like you're looking at the magic eyes, looking through and past something. And that's another way you could activate that trance induction. So that way you can start receiving psychic information. If you do the chi ball exercise in qigong, you can start feeling auras. Yes. Okay. Let's do that real quick, Gemma. I'll teach you what I know, and then if you have a better way, let me know. So another way you can feel auras is, think about it, electromagnetic field. What happens when you put two things side by side with an immense amount of pressure? What happens, guys? Science class 101. They become magnetic. Even if they're not magnetic, they start to become magnetic. They start to have a magnetic pull. Why? Because each of my hands have individual auras. Each of my fingertips have individual auras. So when you do this, so this is how you generate a chi ball, or how I generate a chi ball. You can start with closed hands and you can slowly raise your hands, and then what you want to do is kind of feel for that pressure. Okay? That's a little hard. This is an easier way to do it. Put your hands together, rub them vigorously until you start generating some heat or chi, okay? For a good amount of time. How many of you used to do this with rocks in grade school? I used to do this with rocks. You can do this with rocks as well, okay? And then what you want to do, imagining you have like silly putty in your hand or something, just kind of slowly start pulling them apart. And then stop and start to put them back together again. And then you can literally feel the aura. And you can get the aura really big. And you might start to feel like some bit of resistance when you try to put your hands back together, because they've polarized now, right? Through that torus, the aura is going through the torus, and it's polarizing the two objects that are pressing together. So if you do this and you practice yoga, you can create, especially very easily, or qigong, chi balls, which you can actually feel the parameters, and you will feel your hands not wanting to come back together. And that's the electromagnetic field between your hands. Okay. If you can also do this, I'm going to use lighters, but don't do that. don't follow what I'm doing, just follow what I say. Go outside and get 2 rocks. 2 rocks that are very similarly sized and made of similar material. So if you have granite out there, get a couple granite rocks. What you're going to do is you're going to take the rocks, pretend these are rocks. You're going to push them together really hard for maybe like a minute or so. And then I want you to let go, and then I want you to try to pull those rocks away. And what you're going to find is that when you do that and you apply that pressure, the magnetics, they will magnetize, and you'll be able to feel the perimeter of where that aura actually is. Oh yeah, yeah. That's so fun. I taught my students to make energy balls and toss them back and forth to each other. That's cool. That's really, really neat. I love that. So, all right. So we've talked about, let me actually look at my notes real quick. Make sure I haven't forgotten anything important, because I actually put a lot of thought into this here. So we talked about what an aura is. Everybody has an aura. Everything has an aura. Even inanimate objects have an aura. Everything is vibrating. It just depends on how fast that thing is vibrating. Obviously, a human is vibrating at a faster pace than, say, an inanimate object that's plastic. Anything that's inorganic is going to obviously vibrate at a lower frequency than something that is organic or biological, right? Because it doesn't have any organs, it doesn't have blood, it doesn't have, all the things that go along with maintaining our electrical magnetic fields. The size of an aura. So an aura typically is usually no bigger, on an average day, is usually no bigger than, say, 5 or 6 feet outside of a person. And in fact, most auras on an average day are usually only about maybe 6 inches to about 8 inches around our body. So just think about like, it's kind of like contoured, around your body. Now, when you're a very confident person, everybody has had the experience of having someone walk into a room that everybody shuts up immediately, looks at, and they're just exuding this magnificent aura. You can train your aura to be bigger. And when you train your aura to be bigger, your sense of personal space becomes bigger. And so you can maintain more life experiences, you can maintain more money, you can maintain more responsibility, you can maintain more relationships. The bigger your aura is, naturally, the more you can hold, the more psychic information that you can hold in your aura in order to manifest it out in the real world, right? Gemma says, and that's why eating foods with more chi or life force are usually so much better for you. Absolutely, that's 100% true. Dead food is definitely low vibe, and it's not just low vibe because it's unhealthy. It's low vibration. There's no vibration in it, right? And so it's not going to add anything to your aura. So that's something to also think about. Like I said, you can train your aura to be larger. And how I recommend doing this is, I've talked about this a couple times in the Psychic Hotline School about how to make your aura bigger, how to make your energy bigger. And so you can just imagine yourself sitting here. And what you want to do is you want to imagine in your third eye, your mind's eye, your aura. And then I want you to imagine, you can use your hands if you want, physically pushing your aura up and envisioning it going up, pushing your aura down, envisioning it going down, pushing your aura out to the sides, all right? And that's a daily practice. Before you get on the psychic hotlines or before you start your day, that's a great way. It's what I call bubble up, right? It's the bubble up exercise. What you do is you increase your bubble, you increase your aura, it becomes much bigger. You're able to occupy a larger space. And when you are able to do that, you're a lot more confident, right? Because you have more space to move around it, if that makes any sense. Gemma says, yeah, people will argue that we eat plenty of aged or fermented foods, but they're full of bacteria. Yes, and that is also true. If you eat probiotics, you're literally eating live organisms. So that's why probiotics, eating things like kimchi and yogurt and kefir and kombucha and things like that, sauerkraut, those are all fantastic for you because they're live and they're going to add life to your stomach. They're going to add life to your digestive system. That's really good insight there, Gemma. Very good. And so if you do that exercise where you're pushing your aura out, you will feel like you have more room to exist, if that makes any sense. How many of you are psychics that struggle with spatial reality? How many of you are psychic that struggle with banging your arms or banging your hips or constantly stubbing your toe or running into doors or tripping over things? Spatial awareness has a lot to do with an aura. So if you want to learn how to move more gracefully in this life and to kind of get rid of the clumsiness, it has a lot to do with pushing out your aura and being more receptive to what's around you. Or getting lost in your neighborhood, or forgetting where you parked your car. That's like me. Like every time I get out of the grocery store, I'm like, where did I park? You know? So yeah, and it can exude confidence, and it can help you move in this world more gracefully. So there's a lot of benefits to building up your aura. It's sort of like a psychic muscle, you know, it's a muscle that you build every day. And inevitably what you can do is you can push your aura out to outside your house. You can push your aura out to your neighborhood. You can push your aura out to your city, to your county, to your state, to your country, to the nearby country. Your aura can be immeasurable, right? And that's kind of how we do distance readings, in my opinion. Doing distance readings has a lot to do with pushing our aura out. How do we actually connect with those people, right? So when I'm doing a reading, what I'm kind of doing is I am pushing my aura out over space and time, and I am touching on that person's aura. And then once I tap into that aura, right? Once I tap into that person, then I can kind of pull my energy back and kind of beckon their aura to come to me. That's why when you do a lot of online readings or distance readings, it can feel very exhausting. And I mean, in-person readings can feel exhausting too, but for different reasons, right? Because you're empathing the physicality of that person. But when you're doing online readings or distance-based readings, it can be exhausting because you have to learn how to push your aura out in order to latch on and connect with the target, the psychic target, right? And then pull that energy back and then actually beckon that energy to come to you. So it's less strenuous for you to do the mediumship reading. Also, another way to go about that is to do shamanic journeying, where you, instead of pushing your aura out, you can do astral projection. You can project yourself out to that person, and you can do remote viewing. And that's how the remote viewing aspect kind of ties into this. My auric field is also where I put a lot of my protection energy to. Yes, your auric field is going to contain so many different things. It's going to contain information about your life force. It's going to contain information about your emotional state, about your physical state. It's going to contain information about your spirit guides, your angels, any thought formed high vibrational helpers that you've created are going to live there. Any type of protection entities that you call upon, your ancestors are going to be located in there. Spirit helpers, power animals, your past lives. Okay, so your aura is kind of like, in a way, your physical Akashic record. It's a record. It has everything that exists in a thought form, exists in a state, a suspended state is what we call it, liminal space, right? Where you store these ideas in liminal space so that they can manifest in reality. So, for example, just to give you an idea of what that could be, especially when it relates to business, say I have in my mind a thought form I have created of a wellness center that I want to manifest. Let's say that thought form lives in my aura. And when it's finally time to manifest that, I'll be able to take that out of my aura and put it into the physical reality. But the aura is kind of like a catch-all bag of where our thought forms live, where our psychic energy lives, right? Okay, so we've talked about how big an aura can be. It can be very small, it can be big. Strength of an aura, that has a lot to do with the health of the person, the mental health of a person. We've talked about the shape of the aura. Okay, the shape of an aura is a torus. It goes like this. Look up TORUS online and you'll be able to find it. Layers of the aura. Okay, so is the aura just one thing? No, the aura is many, many, many layers, which is why when you're tapping in clairvoyantly, you can see many different colors in an aura. What you can see is like, so you, oops, sorry, am I back now? So you can kind of envision like a halo kind of around your head, or like an outline around your body. You know, like those chalk outlines when people die at a crime scene. It's kind of like that, but around your body, right? Wow, that a lot of belief systems say the average aura is roughly 50 to 60 feet in diameter. And could you imagine when we have unconscious, not unconscious as in like physically asleep, but metaphorically unconscious, metaphorically asleep people. And if that is to be true, you know, an aura is 50 to 60 feet in diameter, imagine how much of that chaotic energy is affecting us on a daily basis, right? So it's really good psychic hygiene to be mindful of your aura, to train your aura, and to be able to control your aura, because that's where empaths, you know, the whole empath thing kind of comes into play, right? So the layers of an aura. Now, there are a lot of different systems out there that are going to tell you that you can look at the layers of an aura through the chakra system. You can look at the layers of the aura through more of the new age kind of system, where there's like 7, but all of them pretty much have like, you know, there's like 7 or 8 different layers to the aura. There's actually much more than that, but it may be helpful for some people to kind of view sort of like, you know, those Russian dolls, you know, where you open one and there's a smaller one, you open one, there's a smaller one, you open one, there's a smaller one, right? The aura is kind of like that, where you're kind of like, you might see like stripes of different layers of an aura, and they might be different colors. In each of those layers, like in a cake, you know, it might have a different meaning. It might apply to a different state of being within the aura. That one layer could be emotional health. The second layer could be physical health. The third layer could be intellectual health. The outermost layer could be spiritual health. Okay, things like that. So if you're clairvoyant, you may see kind of like layers in a cake, right? You might see kind of like layers. You might also see a blend. So you might see an aura that maybe starts out pink around here, and then it kind of grows to like yellow, and then maybe there's different patterns, like there might be like a little bit of a green, or there might be like a little bit of a blue over here or something like that, right? Toroidal structure for the aura. Yes, the 2 donuts, one sitting on top of each other. Exactly. So you may also, it may also benefit you, and this is kind of how I do it, all right? I kind of view the aura in different quadrants. So what I do is I draw a line in my mind's eye down the nose, right? And then I draw another imaginary line horizontal across here, right? And so I kind of look at the aura in quadrants, and I have psychically attuned myself in order to relate certain quadrants to certain things. Okay. So, first of all, this is how I do it personally, but when you're remote viewing and you're looking at someone's aura and you're doing a reading, anything that's above the nose and higher, this is more of the spiritual realm. All right. Anything below the nose and lower, this tends to be more of the mundane. Okay, this is more of like the day-to-day love, relationships, you know, stuff like that. This up here tends to be more of like the spiritual, soul's calling, life purpose, destiny, karma, dharmas down here, right? Also, I tend to see past lives. They come down, they're more down here. And so then on each side, right, you want to split the quadrants on either side of the face. The left-hand side tends to be the feminine side. The right-hand side tends to be the masculine side. So the feminine side, this you can kind of think of like the moon and the sun in your astrological chart. You can kind of think of like your north node and your south node. Kind of like this would be sort of like the left-hand side would be things that are like of an emotional nature. They're things that relate to homeostasis in the body. They're things that might relate to self-care. They're things that might relate to ideals of what it means to be healthy. It might relate to the maternal lineage of someone. So if you see people or guides, it could be ancestors from the maternal line on the left-hand side. It could also be feminine spirits on the left-hand side, but usually on the left-hand side, it's usually mom, grandma, and then further back ancestors that are from the maternal line. That's just for me. This is just my geographical map of the aura. The right-hand side tends to be more life purpose, career, outer expression, the way that we project ourselves, future ideals about ourselves, right? Ideals of like right and wrong. And this can also be the paternal line, okay? Father, grandfather, etc. All right. So I say maternal and paternal because you could have a grandfather on the maternal side, but he's over here. It doesn't necessarily mean that this is all men or all females, right? So if your mother's father might end up showing up on this side because it's on the maternal side. Your father's mother might show up on this side because it's the paternal line. So this is the distinction that I make. You don't have to use this. This is not a structure that is like, you have to do it this way. That's not what this is. This is just how I have categorically organized how I see auras. Exactly, Gemma says, and that's why the fact that my grandparents made me switch to being a righty after being born a lefty has actually been beneficial for me, stimulating both. That's interesting. Yeah, I can understand that. Hi, Misty. Okay. Now, when it comes to seeing angels, when it comes to seeing guides, so I typically will see guides tend to live up here for me. So I might see angels up here. I might see far extended ancestors. I might see extended masters. I might see deities. I might see gods and goddesses. I might see any type of high vibrational being that's working in the person's life for the greater good, helping them to actualize and realize their purpose. Okay. This is kind of like the divine enlightenment part, right? And so from the nose down, this is where I tend to see, and I tend to see on the chest area, is I will see spirit helpers. These could be things like fairies, devas. This could be things like plant allies. This could be things like any type of plant medicine that this person might need. And really kind of along the chest, I also see power animals, animal totems. So this could be, especially if you see it kind of like, so if you see, does everybody understand what animal totems are? Power animals. Power animals are basically spirit allies that help you. They're natural spirit allies, and they can come to you in the form of the real animal, or you can create them as a thought form, as like a protective guide. So, but you may also have what is called a power animal that is also an ancestral guide. So, for example, my paternal grandmother is Sami. And so Sami, she's from Finland, northern Finland, okay? So she's Sami, and what that means is that they have a direct reverence for reindeer, okay? So I may see, like if someone's doing a reading on me, they may see a reindeer sitting on my shoulder, because paternal line, my father's mother, and I may have a power animal sitting about right here. That may be a reindeer, okay? Some people may be able to pick that up, or just seeing a deer, okay? And that could be an ancestral spirit guide that you have. If you are indigenous in any way, you may have different power animals that relate to you in your ancestry. For example, maybe your family was a bear worshipping type of family, or maybe rattlesnake is also a really big one here in the United States of America, or hawk, or eagle. Okay, so a lot of indigenous people have creation myths that involve animals. And so sometimes you can see, hi Corazon, good to see you. Golden eagles and red-tailed hawks. My nana was indigenous. Okay, so if someone's doing a reading on you, Liz, they may see hawks flying around, or they may see eagles flying around, and they may see it on your maternal side, whatever side you associate with maternal. So you guys are talking about lefties and righties, and left hand feminine and right hand masculine. You guys are each individually on an individual level going to have your associations. So just because I say for me that's the left hand is feminine doesn't necessarily make it for you, right? You can definitely have a polarized version of how that works in your body. And I know that definitely people who identify as like trans, or people who identify as gender queer or gender ambiguous can definitely have a very different, a vastly different relationship with feminine and masculine. So, you know, I say that just simply because I want you, above all else, to trust where your intuition is telling you that certain things are coming from, and then being able to create your own map of an aura, right? You have a lot of birds for animal messengers, Gemma says. Real-tailed hawks, yeah. So you may have power animals. You may also have, now how many of you have seen this? You may also have parasites. You may also have spiritual parasites, or you may have wounds, or you may have past life trauma. How many of you have been able to see that in aura? And if it does show up in aura, what does it look like for you? Misty says, I love this. My strongest gifts are clairsentience and clairaudience, but I feel the energies more often than seeing them, but similar as far as left, right side, directly above to left. Cool. So you already have a really good map that you've created, and you use your clairsentience and clairaudience to hear. And so if you do hear, so let's not leave anybody out, right? So let's say, we talked a lot about clairvoyance, but if you are a listener, okay. So I also can listen to an aura. It's not just seeing an aura. You can listen to an aura. You can smell an aura, right? You can, all the senses you can do with an aura. So let's say you're clairaudient and you are tapping into someone's aura, right? Well, maybe the voices that you're hearing that are coming in through the left-hand side of your ear, maybe those are maternal ancestral, right? And maybe the voices that are coming, so ancestors for me, kind of, they're behind me. Ancestors are behind me. It's kind of almost kind of like they're standing behind me, whispering in their ear, whispering in my ear, excuse me. And so that's kind of how I hear ancestors, all right? Extended masters, they tend to be more up here because they're somewhere in between divinity and human. And then when I'm talking to angels, angels come straight forward. They come straight forward and come at me and down, like in a beam. Right? And then also I'll have some really high vibrational beings will come in through my crown. And this is mainly, this could be angels, this could be God, source that's coming in through the crown right here. But if they have a specific message or a specific directive that I'm supposed to relay to people, it's usually going to come in through my crown, and it's going to come in through a beam like this. Okay. So you can hear things, you can hear the words as they are being said to you. Right? Most of us who have clairaudience, I have clairaudience, I'm a channeler. Most of us who have clairaudience have an internal monologue, and we have multiple internal monologues. So you may have different voices that play in your head, and you may not necessarily hear the ancestor, you may not necessarily hear the deceased person's voice, but you may have a default, kind of like a GPS, right? Where they come with those default voices where, okay, I'm hearing this voice. Okay. So that's, you know, it's relating to this, or I'm hearing this voice and that's relating to this. Okay. Personally, I have a couple voices. My main voice is a masculine voice. I have a masculine voice inside my head that's talking to me all the time. And I think that is like a thought form guide that I've created. And then sometimes I will have a feminine voice coming in if it's more like along the angel realm. Okay, angel realm, high vibrational beings kind of realm. So, but then I have many voices in between that, right? And so depending on which voice I'm hearing, I can attribute that to certain types of mediumship information, right? True that. Like, I can hear the celestial music of the spheres. Yes, Gemma. Yes, yes. Okay, Liz, good to see you. Thanks for stopping by. Have a great day. Gemma says, I've seen much of my past life's trauma. It's crazy. Yes. Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's talk about parasites, and let's talk about wounds in past lives and how we can see those. Yes. Okay. So Misty says that she also gets information through music, information through movies, songs, things like that. So yeah, so your guides can absolutely, if you don't have like an internal monologue that's like that's like relaying information to you, and you're hearing songs and you're tapping into someone's aura and you're hearing songs or quotes, or you're getting movie references or pop culture references, or you're seeing like things that don't necessarily make sense, it's usually because spirit is trying to validate for you that you're connecting into the right person, right? So not necessarily that that song was important to them, not necessarily that that movie was important to them, but there's something about the overarching theme of that song or that movie that relates to that person and the reading that you're doing with that person. Of course, it can be a song that you maybe want to relay and that person, it was like their song, but that's not always how it happens. Gemma says some discarnate beings on the other side are able to come in much more clearly, and some mediums on this side aren't able to hear beings on the other side as well. So it depends on several factors. Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of it depends, in my opinion, on the willingness of the person, right? On the willingness of the person to believe in angels, to believe in guides, to believe in all those things. Because in our aura, we have to at least have the belief that those things exist for us to be able to really connect with them, and for those beings to actually connect with our clients, right? So all of our clients have lots of angels, spirit guides, ancestors, power animals, spirit allies, spirit helpers that are constantly trying to help them in their life. But, you know, how willing are we to allow that to come in? What is our connection to that? And so that's why sometimes you might get a really strong connection with someone who is already spiritual, because it's like the gateway's open, you know. How many of you have like done readings on people where like you got no information? You're like, what is wrong with me? It's usually not you. It's usually the person on the other end is not receptive to it, if that makes sense. And if they don't have a lot of beings in their aura, then you can't really do much of a reading, can you? So there's that. Spiritual parasites. How do we get spiritual parasites? Does anybody know? Does anybody have an idea of how we actually get spiritual parasites? We get spiritual parasites for like any reason. Like you cannot walk outside your house and just not get a spiritual parasite. You can't not do spiritual work and not get spiritual parasites. It's part of it. So we get parasites embedded in us anytime there is one, trauma, or two, someone has attached a cord of attachment to us, right? Those are the two main reasons why we might have spiritual parasites. Now, if you work on the psychic hotlines, you know, those people are attaching cords to you 24/7. And you're talking about a lot of trauma, right? Some trauma that's just running wild. Hey, Lynn, good to see you. Haven't seen you in a minute. Hope you're doing pretty good. So a lot of the times we get parasites when trauma happens. Okay, you're in a car accident. It's not your fault, but you have a spiritual parasite that's affecting you, okay, because you have that trauma that's been embedded in your aura. You have a trauma because in a relationship, you can get STDs, right? What did we call it? PTDs in Lux Lightworker? What were we psychically transmitted diseases. PTDs, we were talking about that in Lux Lightworker the other week, how you can get PTDs. They're psychically transmitted diseases, right? Anytime that you are working with someone who has trauma, you can get parasites from that, right? And parasites are just negative thought forms that attach themselves to your aura in order to feed off of it. It's a type of psychic vampirism, right? But also you can get sexually transmitted parasites. How many of you have exes out there that you have been intimate with that you cannot get out of your mind? That you feel like they're sending you intuitive messages all the time? Astral sex, yeah. So this is a big, big area where people have PTDs and they have psychic parasites, right? It can happen a lot through sex. It can happen a lot through relationships. It can also happen non-sexually too. I mean, it can happen just in having, say, a narcissistic friend or a psychic vampiric friend, right? Or like that friend that's an Eeyore, right? That you're like, can never cheer up. They're never happy. They're never satisfied with what they have. You know, that kind of like complaining can become attached to you like a parasite, right? Other people's stuff, other people's projections. you know? So if you see psychic parasites, how do they attach? Well, they attach they look like kind of like leeches in your aura, and they can be anywhere. They can be anywhere in your aura, and they can look kind of like dark spots or like black spots, or they can look like holes where you can see a parasite has been like eating through a person's aura, like kind of like a bookworm, right? Gemma says that's why it's important to have regular clearing, purification, and cord cutting practice. Yes. And then the other way we can pick up parasites is through cords of attachment. And most of us are familiar with seeing cords of attachment in auras. And a lot of the time we can see, what you'll see is kind of like tentacles kind of coming off of a person's aura. And what that is it's a cord of attachment. Now, not all cords of attachment are bad. You can have a cord of attachment with your mom and love your mom, and you guys are attached psychically because you love each other, like me and my mom. Or you can have a psychic cord with your ex because for some reason you haven't been able to clear that energy and they have attached onto you a parasite, a psychic parasite. That's why you can't stop thinking about it. So when we're working on the psychic hotlines and these people are constantly coming to us and they're like, I haven't talked to this person in 20 years, but I just want to know how they feel about me. They have a psychic parasite. They have a parasite that person has left psychically and is feeding on their aura. That's why they can't get that person out of their mind, right? So it becomes important to learn how to get rid of those. Now, to get rid of those, that's a little bit more of a more advanced topic. We can do a lesson on that, how to actually do psychic surgery as a medium. So if you guys are interested in learning how to do that, I would love to teach you guys how to do psychic surgery and to get rid of those psychic parasites. Renee says, I feel like we acquire those parasites when we invite or permit them. Sometimes we do it and it's like, oh yeah, oh my gosh, yeah. I mean, how many parasites do we have that are formed of good intentions, of wanting to help people, of overextending our own boundaries in order to help people, right? So there's that. There can also just be an unawareness of what people's real intentions are, right? That you maybe don't see through that until it's a little bit too late. And then you're stuck with this parasite of cord of attachment that you have to cut. One of the easiest ways to do that is to visualize cutting that cord, or to walk your client through a cord cutting exercise. You can do like a guided visualization where you're helping them cut that cord. Occasionally, it will take multiple attempts to cut energetic cords and psychic cords, especially if they've been there for a really long time. They can be severely embedded in certain chakras. You can also do specific chakra work. Say, for example, your client has an ex-boyfriend that has attached a cord to their sacral chakra, right? So you may do you could do like a sacral chakra clearing on them. You could do Reiki on them, that sort of thing. So that's another way you can do it. But we'll do psychic surgery. We'll do that on a whole nother topic. That would be really fun to talk about and to teach you guys how to do it. Gemma says that's like 75% of my clients on the psychic hotlines. Girl, I know it. Okay, let's see. The heart chakra, speaking of chakras, your heart chakra is basically the seat of your aura. So that's kind of taken a lot from the Merkaba, from the Kabbalah, right? So your heart is kind of like in between your lower chakras and your higher chakras. It's the seat of your chakra vehicle system, of your light body vehicle, okay? And that's what we're seeing when we look at an aura. We're looking at someone's light body. So you may hear it referred to as that, and it's all the same thing. Aura, light body, chakras. Same thing, just a different tradition, just a different perspective, just a different way of describing the same thing. Yeah, Gemma says cord cutting ceremonies make a sacred space the client enters to really clear their aura. Yep, and it could take multiple sessions. Let's see. Past life experiences. Okay. Oh, and we didn't talk about timeline divergences. Okay, so we'll talk about past life. And we'll talk about timeline divergences. And then that'll be the end of today's session. And then we'll pick up next week and we'll talk about psychic surgery. How's that? So past lives, I always see from the body from the nose down. Past lives, I often personally see attached to the feet. Okay. So I might see different balls of energy. I might be able to peer into that ball psychically, clairvoyantly, at like a scrying ball that's attached to their feet. And I might be able to peer into that ball and be able to like kind of see what kind of past life that we're dealing with. Usually what I can see is what the wounds were. I may get a psychic image of like, what race the person was, what it looks like they might be from, like what country or area they might be from. Like, is it a wooded area? Is it a forest? Is it an ocean view? Is it a city dwelling? What is it? Is it the ancient pyramids? Okay. And then you might be able to get some sort of like timeline approximately of when this happened. And you may be able to also receive psychic information about any wounds that have been embedded in that person. Say if that person, the witch wound is very, very prevalent amongst our own clients, because our own clients who seek spiritual healing are going to be spiritual people and likely have past lives as witches in any way, shape, or form. Whether they were witches in the tribes of Africa, whether they were witches in New England, whether they were shamans in Native American tribes and indigenous tribes. Okay, so every culture has some sort of witch or healer or shaman or medicine person. They had a designated person that would be the person that would deal with the spirits, that would deal with reading the runes or the bones or the shells or something like that. You know, they had that person who was the fortune teller, who was the healer, who was the person that went to the spirits on behalf of the tribe in order to bring about a rain that was needed for the crops, to bring about the buffalo, to bring about the herds of elk for hunting, to bring about the rains to fill up the waters and things like that, right? So we all have, in some way, shape, or form, whether you view past lives as a reincarnation or you view past lives as your actual ancestral past lives. Because in previous videos, I was talking about how we have epigenetics. We understand through epigenetics that we inherit memories from our parents, from our grandparents, from our ancestors, about related to what they went through, right? So if they went through a famine, let's say your grandparents were part of the Irish potato famine, right? You may unknowingly have this wound within you that deals with food, that you don't feel like there's ever enough food, or that you hoard food and you're like, I don't know why I do this, right? It's just irrational. So sometimes when your clients come to you and you're like, I have this irrational thing, right? And you're like, okay, that's probably past life, right? That's what you talk to them and they're like, I don't have a point of trauma for this. I don't know what time in my life this got embedded, but I have this irrational response to this. And you're like, okay, past life, right? So let's go into the aura. Let's see what's going on in the past life. And let's, do a reading on that. I know timeline divergencies are fascinating. Yes, they are. Gemma says, when I do past life readings for people, I can get random information like that, but I feel like I have less control of what types of information I get. I've wondered why, and I've come to the conclusion that spirit only allows the needed information to come through for the person's highest benefit. Let's talk about the fact that maybe people aren't ready to hear it. Finding out that you were burned at the stake for being a witch 300 years ago, that could implant trauma that person didn't even know that they had that trauma. And now, oh my God, they have that trauma because we relayed the information, right? So there's that. And then also what you can do is you can go through a questionnaire. So while you're in the psychic space, while you're peering into the past life, you can ask yourself a questionnaire, right? What does this person look like? Okay, wait for that information to come. How old is this person? Wait for that information to come. Where is this location happening? What timeline is this located in? Okay. What was this person's career? What was this person's job? Right? So you can ask yourself, so you can go through like a questionnaire to make sure that you're not missing any information if you want to be super, super thorough. But yes, I do absolutely believe that spirit is only going to show the most relevant information because spirit doesn't want us to traumatize people, right? Misty says, I found out I have a past life fear related to misuse of power that causes self-sabotage in the lifetime when I get it. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, self-sanatorium, that was a Freudian slip there. So, you might meditate on that, Misty, because that was a Freudian slip. Are you worried about people thinking that you're crazy? Are you worried about being locked up in a sanatorium? Okay, so that's past lives. Timeline divergencies. How many of you are palmists? How many of you can read palms? Now, in a palm reading, okay, when you're doing a palm reading, basically when you're doing a palm reading, there are major lines that you're reading. I know they think I'm crazy. So let's say, for example, you know, your lifeline or something like that. I'm not a palm reader, so I don't know. I'm probably pointing to the wrong line. Just pick a line. Just pretend it's the lifeline, okay? When you're a palm reader and you're looking at a certain line, what you can see is what is called like a fork in the road, where the line goes and then it splits, right? And this is what's called a timeline divergence. It means that there was a very incredibly important thing that happened in that person's life, either a decision that they consciously made or something that happened to them. Their mom died. They got divorced. Their pet died. Okay? They changed their careers. They changed their life path. And sometimes when you're looking at an aura, you can see these divergences within the aura. They can look like cracks in an aura. They can kind of look like what a lightning kind of looks like. You know, if you take a picture of what lightning looks like, it kind of has like these little squiggle lines and things like that. You can also see, I also tend to see actual storms, like realistic storms that might be in people's auras. All right, that can be a timeline divergence. A timeline divergence is where you are following one path religiously and dedicatedly, and then something happened, boom, you split. All right, so you have the path that you are on now, and you have the parallel universe path that you would have taken. All right, so sometimes when you're seeing past lives in an aura, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's an actual past life. It could be a past timeline divergence from where they were originally supposed to go, okay? And what they were originally supposed to be doing. Now, you can typically see that based on where it is in the aura. So like I said, past lives, I tend to dedicate more towards the feet. So I know psychologically when I'm going in, geographically, if I'm seeing it at the feet, it's very likely a past life. If I'm seeing those divergences anywhere from, say, the knees up and higher, then for me, that could be a timeline divergence where something very major happened in this person's life, and you can then ask questions. How many of you actually ask questions to your psychic target? So that's what mediumship is. That's why we're talking about mediumship, right? In relation to auras. So communicating with the spirit of that past life, communicating with the spirit, the thought form spirit of that timeline divergence. Talk to it. Ask it questions. If you ever go into a psychic reading and you're like, I don't know what that means, ask it. Say, hey, can you tell me a little bit more about what this represents and what it means? Or I'm not sure I understand. Can you show me something that would make more sense? And then you're also going to have things where you have your own, as a psychic, you have your own symbol dictionary. And you may see things in their aura that's only for you. So for example, if I see a yellow rose in someone's aura, then I know that that's their grandmother coming, their maternal grandmother coming through, because my maternal grandmother comes through with a yellow rose. So I have assigned maternal energy to come through as a yellow rose. I have assigned, me personally, my paternal grandmother energy to come through as a reindeer. So I may see a reindeer in somebody else's aura. It doesn't mean that that's necessarily a reindeer that is their power animal. It means that I could be interpreting with my mind's eye their paternal grandmother, because that's my psychic symbol for that. You guys understand? So question what you see. Ask it questions. It's intelligent. It will tell you and it will yield its secrets to you. But you have to be patient and you have to ask questions and you have to trust what you get. Okay? Trusting what you get is the most important aspect of this, right? None of this works unless you're willing to look and unless you're willing to trust in what you see. And a lot of the times we feel like we're making it up, and in reality we are. We are making it up because we are interpreting something that doesn't live on this plane of existence. And so we have to use symbols and strategies that we can relate to as these 3D beings that live in this physical plane in order to interpret the language of spirit, right? And you will become better at this. The longer you do it, the more readings that you do, you will become more fluent. Psychic information is a language, right? You have your own personal language and you have the language of other people that you're perceiving, right? So my recommendation, be patient with yourself. And one of the best ways to do this is to get out it when you're doing aura readings, get out a piece of paper and draw a person's head, draw two lines through it, okay? First line and second line. Start drawing what you see in their aura and then go into analyzing it. So if you draw it and you're doing automatic writing, so you tune in, you're like, oh, I see an angel right here. Okay, draw a little halo or a little smiley face with a halo. You see a turtle over here. Okay, draw a little turtle. You see a specific number, 44 over here. What does that mean? Okay. Then that way, as you're getting the psychic information, you're not having to stop and pause and like, okay, what does this mean? Because if you stop and pause, you're going to lose it, right? So you want to make sure you're staying in there and just try to write down as many symbols, as many numbers, as many colors, as many shapes, anything that you find. Write it all down. And then you can do the analysis. Then you can kind of see how it all kind of works together. And that's a good way to kind of keep that connection going without losing that connection. Truncation. Okay, hold on. I got to look. So truncation that happens in the mental plane, in the mind, manifests in the auric field with energetic divergence. Hold on. Let me look up truncation. Does anybody have any questions about auras? Does anybody have any questions about anything that I have said? Does anybody have questions about the map of the aura? Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, that's very interesting, Gemma. Very, very, very interesting. Okay, so I'm going to open up for questions. If nobody has questions, then I'm going to be leaving you all to think about what you learned today. And we're going to be coming back on next Monday, and we're going to be talking about psychic surgery, how to do psychic surgery in the aura. We'll also talk about a little bit about Reiki. We'll talk about energy healing. We'll talk about how to remove parasites. And we'll talk about how to feel for parasites. We'll talk about how to feel for wounds and things like that. Okay, no questions? All right, well, you guys have an amazing rest of your Monday. I will see you guys in the group, and I'll see you next week.